the WKD did overbust reviews. This is the Laurie corset. So here is the front, the side, the back, and the other side. So as usual, starting with the length and the fit of this. The center front is 12.5 inches high. The highest part of the corset from the apex of the busk down to the hips is 15 inches high. It comes to the upper hips for me, so it's not a long line corset. It has the signature WKD hip gores, so it does not pinch my hips. Actually, the bottom part of the corset is laced as tightly as it can go, so it's very rare that a corset does not pinch my hips, but this does a nice job of actually giving my hips enough room while still cinching my waist. With the bust, however, I feel that I don't have quite enough room in there, and as you can see in the back, it's laced rather loosely here so that I'm not boobling out of it. The coverage of the bust is very similar to the Sophia corset, except with the Laurie corset, it seems to be more of a peak. It's more pointed in the bust line, whereas with the Sophia corset, it was a little bit more rounded. They say on the website that this corset can accommodate anybody with an A cup right up to an E cup, but I think you'll have to make that decision for yourself. Alright, so here is the Laurie corset laying flat. You can see that it lays flat really nicely, and it's also actually light as a feather. The material is made out of 2 layers of sheer pink organza, so I don't know if you can actually see my fingers on the other side, but it is quite sheer. Despite the fact that it's polyester, its sheerness actually allowed it to breathe really well this past summer. However, because of its sheerness, I didn't wear it as often as my other corsets, and certainly not outside by itself. I wore it over top of a camisole or something. Even when I was doing this video, I was wearing little petals, little pasties, just to make sure. You can see here that the boning channels, the binding at the top and bottom here, and the black waistband here, this is what actually takes most of the stress. This is made out of a sturdy black satin. The organza, it provides just enough tension to prevent, you know, your skin from poking and oozing out from between the channels, basically. So it's kind of like a glamorized skeleton corset. So the organza, even though it is pretty weak by itself, it doesn't take that much tension. Most of the stress is on the black areas here. If you want to look at what other skeleton corsets look like, or there's also sometimes called summer corset or ventilated corsets, I provided some links below in the description box. So opening up the corset here, you can see that there is an internal waist tape. It's visible, it's in peach satin. Although it's right next to the skin, it doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. It's visible from the outside too, as you can see right here, but I think it's kind of pretty. I think that is more of a feature than a bug. You can also see the Modesty panel here. This one is 8.5 inches wide, so it's really wide. It's also finished in the same 2 layers of the sheer organza. There's also a protective front placket here at the front behind the busk, stiffened but not stiffened with bone. For the construction of this, let me just open one side of it so you can see both the inside and the outside at the same time. This is beautifully and really cleanly constructed. The black satin boning channels are finished both on the outside and on the inside here, as well as the diamond-shaped belt here at the front. And if I turn it around to the back here, you can see that the back grommets are finished in the same black satin, as well as the seams of these hip cores here. So what this does, it adds both definition and it also strengthens the seams, as there's not much strength to the organza itself. The gore seams are not boned, but all these channels, they are. And speaking of bones, I counted 12 in total, not including the busk. So there are single bones here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are 1/4 inch wide spiral bones, and then an additional 2 flat steel bones on either side of the grommets. So double that for the other side, that gives you 12. Going back to the front here, the busk. The busk from tip to tip is 11 inches long. The extra 1.5 inches in the front is made up by the binding, which is pretty standard. It's a standard flexible bust, as you can see here, but it's then reinforced by a 1 inch wide sheet, which is why it feels more sturdy. Once again, there is talk of Katie putting in heavy duty 1 inch wide busts on all of these, but I'm not sure if it is including this style of corset. And just as a special note here, if I peek under the seam of the busk right here, can you see that that raw edge right there? That's what they used to reinforce the busk. Since the organza isn't strong enough to hold the busk on its own, they used a thick, sturdy canvas that's been covered in a starch to like fill all the holes in the canvas and make it really sturdy. So this is most likely a type of buckram. And then they put the pale pink satin over top of that, and that's how the busk stays nice and secure and sturdy in here without ripping out. So I found that really interesting that they would use this type of material, and maybe I'll try it myself one day. And looking at the grommets here, standard to what Katie did over Best corsets, there are 24 two-piece size 0 grommets. They're nice and sturdy, none of them are splitting. They're set very nicely into heavy satin, probably also with the buckram or some sort of canvas inside of it. No signs of popping out, no signs of splitting. And here is the front side of it as well. As you can see, there's absolutely no tearing away of the grommets from the fabric at all here. For the laces, this is actually the only type of corset that I got from what Katie did that did not come with the standard shoelace type laces in the back. This is actually 1 inch wide black single face satin. It has no stretch to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. It hasn't frayed or ripped. I was kind of worried about that because ribbon tends to catch and fray more than shoelace, but since the grommets are set really nicely in here and they don't have any splitting in them, then these laces don't catch anyways. I think if I had to replace these in the future, I would replace it with double face satin, because then it doesn't have any sort of directionality and it's slightly stronger, but this type of ribbon has actually held up really well. Because this is the cabaret style of the Laurie corset, it costs a little bit more than the normal Laurie corset. This costs £209.50 from the UK store or $375 from the US store. And now for the bust test. Alright, so as you can see, the Laurie corset did get a 4 out of 4 on the bust test. I didn't experience any popping out or wardrobe malfunctions or anything like that. When I was doing the test, it felt very similar to the Sophia corset, which I expected. And I felt very secure when I was raising my arms or shrugging my shoulders. However, when I was leaning over, I felt that I exposed a little bit too much. There wasn't any popping out, but I felt that it was a little bit more cleavage than I would have liked. So take that with a grain of salt. So this concludes the Laurie corset review. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to post a comment below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!